candidating here, a couple people asked me, what are you going to do about young people? You know, we have things for the youth, but what about young adults? And I said, I have this friend. I have a good friend. We went to practitioner studies together up in Seattle, and she's now down in Berkeley running this thing called the Launching Pad. And about 2 months after I started here, she called me up one day and said, hey, can we have lunch together? And it happened to be the same time as a leadership committee meeting. And so I said, yeah, come have lunch. And before you have lunch, you come to the leadership conference and talk about what you're doing. And she goes, and she arrived and said, well, the most exciting thing that I'm doing is we are launching another launching pad. They have this thing called the Launching Pad, which is a big house in Berkeley for young people, 20 to 35. Have you noticed in our movement, we have plenty for kids up to 19, 18, and then we drop them? Yeah. So her vision was to have something for people 19 to about 35. And so she had this launching pad in Berkeley, and out of the launching pad came these two wonderful people who are opening a launching pad in Ashland, or have been in the process of opening a launching pad in Ashland. And we are, as a congregation, supporting them financially with 1% of our income. That's 10% of the tithe we normally give each month. And so, yes. Several of us went up for their opening concert to launch it a few months back. They have since had Gene Houston doing a leadership conference for young people, for young adults 20 to 35, just a month ago. Yeah, that John Waterhouse, our president, was speaking at. So we are blessed. They said, we want to come and share our music and our spoken word and our poetry with you. And I said, oh yeah. So Firefly Walter, Alana, who loves you in progress, thank you. Bless you.
This is a poem by the artist Mara Friedman that I put to music, and it's a 4-line call and response. So I will sing a line, and then you will sing it back to me. And I'll give you the words so that you have it beforehand in your mind. Sacred is listening to your heart. Sacred is opening through your art. Sacred is everything that you feel. Sacred is loving, so all may heal. And of course, like any good congregational song, we'll go through a few times with I am, you are, we are. Sacred is listening to your heart. Sacred is listening to your heart. Sacred is opening through your art. Sacred is opening through your heart. Sacred is everything that you feel. Sacred is everything that you feel. Sacred is loving, so all may heal. Sacred is loving, so all may heal. I am listening to my heart. I am listening to my heart. I am opening through my art. I am opening through my art. Sacred is everything that I feel. Sacred is everything that I feel. I am loving, so all may heal. I am loving, so all may heal. You are listening to your heart. You are listening to your heart. You are opening through your art. You are opening through your heart. Sacred is everything that you feel. Sacred is everything
loving, so all may hear. Sacred is loving, so all may hear. Sacred is loving, so all may hear.
So, hi, thank you so much for having us here today. It really is quite the honor. Firefly and I met in January of this year, and first time we hung out, we wrote this song, very first night. And we chose it today under the theme, not really knowing what Reverend Ed David would do with it. And after we listened to it this morning, we are astonished at the way that Spirit moves and the decisions that we make as we move forward with our art. So thank you so much. It's called All I Need.
I was waiting in line for the doctor, hoping the system would be my shelter, reaching out for something outside of me, waiting, wanting, needing. I thought I needed more education, just preparing for stormy weather. I thought credentials meant validation. I thought I had to be someone other. I don't need a job to set me free. I don't even need security. All I need is some fresh air to breathe. All I need's the home inside of me. If I had 2 times what I wanted, if I had 3 times what I need, I would still be wanted till I could see all I need's inside of me. Thought I needed someone to own me. I thought I needed to give my everything. I thought completion was in a lover. I thought I had to be someone other. I don't even need to wear a ring. I don't need compatibility. All I need's to trust my offering. All I need's the love inside of me. If I had 2 times what I wanted, if I had 3 times what I need, I would still be wanted till I could see all I need's inside of me. I thought I needed the bells and whistles. I thought I needed to learn the cover. Making it all up was unofficial. I thought I had to be someone other. I don't even need the words to sing. I don't even need the poetry. All I need is my 2 lips to read. All I need's the voice inside of me. If I had 2 times what I wanted, if I had 3 times what I need, I would still be wanted till I could see all I need's inside of me. inside of me. Thank you.
That's my talk. I don't have to give it anymore. I'm just going to sit back and have a glass of wine with Terry and Francis and Mary. How's everybody today? Isn't that great? Yes. So our talk today is resistance is futile. You will be assimilated into the high mind. Not the hive mind, the high mind. Are you good with that?
Yes.
All right. So the Borg. This is a check. How many of you know who the Borg are? About the same as first service. Wow. Star Trek? Have you ever heard of Star Trek? Oh, good. Okay. So the Borg was like the worst, biggest, nastiest enemy that they had on the Star Trek. It was a collective that would go around absorbing other cultures in order to add them to themselves in order to be perfect. In order to add themselves to themselves to become perfect. Anybody relating? Do you notice how many times you've done that in your life? Because there's the basic underlying assumption, I'm not perfect, therefore I have to have 2 times what I want and 3 times what I need and all that stuff in order to be somebody other. Or I can be myself. Take a breath. So today we're going to look right in the face of something called resistance. And I had to look at resistance because this was not the talk I was originally going to write. But last Wednesday, the universe interrupted the talk that I had in mind by introducing me to a book called The War of Art. Not the art of war, but The War of Art, written by a gentleman named Stephen Pressfield, who, all of you know who Stephen Pressfield is, right? You've really heard that he's big name? Okay. Ever heard of The Legend of Bagger Vance? Made into a movie with Will Smith and Matt Damon and Charlize Theron? Yeah, some of you have, some of you haven't. Great movie, great book. He wrote the book. But he looks at the idea of resistance. And it's this fabulous quote that he starts with. Most of us have 2 lives. The life we live and the unlived life within us. Between the 2 stands resistance. How many of you relate to that? A few of you do. Okay, the rest of you are out living your lives, and there's no unlived life within you. You're living spirit. All right, good. So for the few of us who are still kind of stuck in that resistance thing, I'm going to do this talk. The rest of you, just be patient with us, and we'll move forward. Ecclesiastes says that God made man perfect, but man has created many inventions. We get in our own way. You ever notice? Resistance is the most toxic force on the planet. And you thought it was, fill in your blank. Resistance is the most toxic force on the planet. It is the root of more unhappiness than poverty, disease, and erectile dysfunction. To yield to this is his quote. To yield to resistance deforms our spirit. It stunts us and makes us less than we are and were born to be. So the opposite of resistance, to take a look at that, is something called genius. And we've talked before about living in our zone of genius. We talked just a couple weeks ago about letting our creativity flow and being open to that. And that's the zone that we want to live in. Genius is a Latin word, and it basically has a sense of it's the inner spirit within us that is guiding us, that is calling us to what our soul wants to express, what we are here to be and become and express. That's our genius. And you know you're living in it because you lose track of time. You're in that flow and you feel absolutely in the zone, at one, and moving. How many of us have experienced that feeling? Great. That's the rest of us. So we want to live in genius. But genius, like every other bright light, has a shadow. And the shadow of genius is resistance. So how do you know when you're in resistance? You know you're in resistance when you start putting off what it is that you really want to do. As soon as we start to go for what it is that we really want, resistance sets in. Immediately. I mean, like bang, like a bullet. You know, that fast. Faster than a speeding bullet. Okay? And what causes our resistance? What brings about resistance? Well, here's a nice little list. See if you relate to any of this stuff. Number one, the pursuit of any calling in writing, painting, music, film, dance, or any creative art, however marginal or unconventional. I know earlier in the first service I was talking about Reverend Mary, who just finished a couple of books and asked if she had any resistance along the way, and she's like, uh-huh. Half the time we won't even start. How many of you have that book that you know you're supposed to write, or the painting you know you're supposed to do, or the song you're supposed to create, and you haven't started yet? Great. Okay. Resistance, capital R resistance, has a hold of you. Number two, the launching of any entrepreneurial venture or enterprise, for profit or otherwise. How many of you have a business that you know you're supposed to be launching and a work that you're supposed to be doing and you're not doing it? Take a breath. Keep breathing through this. Number three, any diet or health regimen. Yeah. Yeah, that one hurt me too. There's one later that hurts even more. Number four, any program of spiritual advancement. How many of you know you're supposed to be in practitioner studies? And you've completed all the classes, but you aren't yet, or you're not completing classes, or you're putting it off? Just notice. Any other particular program of spiritual advancement. Just notice that. I love Firefly. She's already told me that she's finishing up Prac 2 this year, starting Prac 2 this year right now, or next week, and then going into ministerial school. I loved it. She told me that she started religious science when she was 1 year old. One. I was sitting there looking at those little kids after that thinking, you know, there was a church that had her as a little kid up there that they were singing or blessing them as they went out at some point in time, and now she's doing this. And that life just keeps on going. There was a talk that another young adult did, Joe Murray, who I know you know, did at one of the leadership conventions, and he said, this is an aside, I'm not on my talk right now, but he said, I'm tired of listening to you old folks say, I wish I had religious science when I was your age. He said, you have it now, use it now. You know, how many of us wish we had back then? We have it now, okay? The I wish I knew what I knew back, you know, now, back then, sort of thing. When I was a chauffeur, I was taking 3 women out, and it was a woman who was about 40. She was celebrating her 40th birthday that day. Her high school friend and her mother, and they were sitting there. They were looking through pictures in the back seat of themselves when they were 18, and they went, "God, we were really hot back then. We just never knew it." And the mom looks over at them and says, "And you are now, and you don't know it." You know, what 20 years advantage does, you're hot right now. At almost 90, you're hot right now. Okay, here's the one that hurt. Any action whose aim is tighter abdominals. Yeah, I have, really do. 6, any course or program designed to overcome an unwholesome habit or addiction. Education of every kind. You know, that class you wanted to go to, that college course you've been wanting to take, that language you've been wanting to learn. Any act of political, moral, or ethical courage, including the decision to change for the better some unworthy pattern of thought or conduct within ourselves. Undertaking of any enterprise or endeavor whose aim is to help others. Any act that, I have to say, by the way, one of the things I loved about this church when I first previewed this church and checked it out while you were checking me out was the Food for Soul, the Shoes for Souls and Food for Hope program. The fact that you guys get out and do things in this community. I love my former church, but they would not do that. It was like trying to use dynamite to blast them off of their chairs to do something. And so I'm so grateful that we, at least do some things out in the community and support people. So I honor us for that, all of you. Any act that entails commitment of the heart, the decision to get married, to have a child, to weather a rocky patch in a relationship, to start up in another relationship after you've been hurt, the taking of any principled stand in the face of adversity. In other words, any act that rejects immediate gratification in favor of long-term growth, health, or integrity, or expressed another way, any act that derives from our highest nature instead of our lowest. Any of these will elicit resistance. We talked about on the spiritual path the dark night of the soul. And the dark night of the soul simply is where the resistance comes full square right in the face. So I want to talk about resistance today because the Dalai Lama says that the enemy is a great teacher. Our enemy is a great teacher. He talks about he has friends and then he has sacred friends. And the sacred friends are like the Chinese government in his case. We all have sacred friends, don't we? Yes. Special friends. And they're the greatest of teachers. Not the easiest, but the greatest. So, how does resistance feel? We need to know how it feels. First thing it does is it shoves us away from our good. Anytime you're starting to sit down, I sit down and start to write a talk, and all of a sudden I want to play a computer game. I want to get up and go find chocolate. That's that diet thing. And the abdominals and all that stuff. I want to do something other than sit down and write the talk, okay? Anytime that you start to do what it is that you want to do and you have this urge, the resistance will shove you away from that. Now, the neat thing about that is if you notice what it is that is shoving you away from your good, you get a clue of what your good is. Where you notice that you're in the most resistant behaviors, you can look and say, what was it that I wanted to do? What was it that I intended to do when I got into that behavior? I mean, I know people who would rather have a root canal than do, their heart work. Do whatever it is they came here to do. So it shoves us away from our good. It's internal. There's nobody out there that's causing us resistance. It comes from within us. Good news, bad news, right? And it's fueled by fear. And if we can master the fear, if we can start to look the fear in the face and not let it own us, we can start to master the resistance. Those of us who are in the Prosperity Plus program remember the phrase, do it afraid. The thing with fear is we don't get over the fear. We never get over the fear. Okay? But we do it afraid anyways. We feel there's a book, feel the fear and do it anyway. So, and we do it afraid. We do it with that fear anyways. We don't have to get over it. Resistance is insidious and implacable. It never sleeps. It's like rust. Okay? It's rust on your dreams. It will keep on going and keep on going and keep on going. We're going to get to the solution to this in a minute. It's most powerful at the finish line. How many of you have gotten close to a project that you know is your heart project, something to do, and all of a sudden, almost as you're finished, you get distracted, things come up, you decide to run, you decide to, I see a hand back there. I know Mary and I were talking about that. She had that with her book, with that. I have it with my talks. I've almost got the talk completed, and all of a sudden I want to do something else. There's a great Jeff Beck rock and roll video that I have on my computer that I like to watch and listen to once in a while. And I suddenly get involved in that instead of finishing the talk. Whatever it is for you. It's strongest at the finish line. The Israelites, when they were leaving Egypt, got to the Promised Land in about 2 months. That's about the time it takes to walk. But they didn't enter the Promised Land because they sent some guides in, some spies in, to check the place out, and they had so much resistance. Oh, there's giants and there's all this stuff, out there, looking at that out there, and they didn't trust the God within. They came back and said, we can't go. And so the punishment, which was not administered by anything out there, but is a symbol of the consciousness we had, was they had to wander around in the desert for 40 years until that consciousness died out to where they were strong enough in their trust of the Spirit within, that inner act that we want to be, that inner presence that we want to be, to where they could trust it to walk into the land. Okay? Ulysses, Odysseus, in Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey, gets to the shore of Ithaca, or within sight of the shore of Ithaca in his home, fairly quickly on his first voyage. And what does he do? He lays down to sleep. And the sailors who are running the ship, he thinks it's a done deal. He can actually see the fires in the shore from his home, from his people welcoming him home. And the sailors, and he lays down, takes a nap. We're good to go. He's got this bag that he would never open. And the sailors were suspicious, and they thought, well, maybe it's a bag of gold. So they opened it up, and what it was the adverse winds that one of the gods had bagged up for him so that he would have only fair winds in his venture. And of course, going for the gold, they opened that up, and it blew them back to where they came from. How many of us in our lives have, right at the edge of it, been blown, right at the edge of getting what we want, been blown back to where we want to go? Or backwards somewhere? A couple of people, thank you. Take a breath. And finally, resistance triggers resistance in others. Resistance triggers resistance in others. When we start going for what we want, other people will do one of two things. They'll get enthusiastic and go for what they want too, and support us in that process, or it will trigger the fact that they're not going for what they want, and they don't want you to either because you'll leave them. In Jonathan Livingston Seagull, not in Jonathan Livingston Seagull, in the next one, Illusions, there's a little story right in the front of the book that talks about a community of creatures that lived by clinging to rocks in a flowing stream. And finally, one of them decides to see what happens if, talk about resistance, right, hanging on, decides to see what will happen if he lets go. And everybody says, oh, you can't do that, you can't do that, you'll be killed by the rocks. But he finally lets go, and at first he gets tossed around and bounced on the rocks, but eventually he learns how to float on the river, and he flies over the, he seemingly flies, and he passes other communities of creatures down the river, still clinging onto the rocks, and they say, look, a Messiah, a Savior. And he says, no, just let go of the rocks. Just let go. And none of them do, and they talk for years afterwards and centuries afterwards about the Messiah and the Savior and the chosen one who went flying over their heads. Okay? Can we let go of that? Can we let go of what's holding us back, whether we're supported or not? Okay? So we want to look at the symptoms of resistance, just so we know it. We want to know this enemy. Number one symptom of it is procrastination. A couple of my 9 o'clock people are here. Procrastination. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll get around to it next week. I've been saying for 3 months now, I think, that I'm going to sign up for the gym. I'll get to it next week. Hand in hand with procrastination goes rationalization. I've got all these great reasons. I mean, I had great reasons for not signing up for the gym. I'm busy. I had my broken toe. Remember my broken toe? It was their fault. I had lots of great reasons. I realized afterwards you can still sign up for the gym even if your toe's broken. And you can do upper body workouts even if your toe's broken. But I didn't want to think about that at the time. Okay? So rationalizations. He gives an example in there that one of the rationalizations is, oh, my wife is 8 months pregnant. He says Tolstoy had 13 kids and still wrote War and Peace. Perhaps he wrote War and Peace because he had 13 kids. I'm not sure. Okay, but the rationalizations. Then using things like sex, drugs, food, TV, shopping, or sleep. I'm sorry if I just hit on one of yours. As a way of avoidance. And the way you know that they're an avoidance when you feel hollow afterwards. When you realize that you should have been doing something else and you wanted to be doing something else and your soul was calling for something else and you did this instead. Okay? So it's not all the time when you're having any of those, but it's when you're using them as a way to avoid what you're doing. Another symptom is creating trouble in your life. Some of us will create messes to have to clean up to avoid, none of you, I know, but you've seen people. right? To avoid actually doing what is yours. That's the person who suddenly needs the root canal. Or suddenly, the roof needs to be fixed. It's been there all along, but all of a sudden this day, when I'm really supposed to be doing this, the roof needs to be fixed, and I'll do that. Another wonderful part of that is drama. When we're involved and all gotten up in drama, we don't have time to listen to that still small voice within. You probably didn't write that song when you were in a state of high drama. You guys probably had to come together and start listening internally. Okay? And so we create drama as a phenomenal way to avoid. Another one is being a victim. Have another method of drama. If I'm just a victim, if I can't get anything done and everybody's against me, why would I go for what I really want? Because, well, everything's against me and everybody's against me and I'm just a poor little victim here. Again, you don't know, you know people like this. It's not anybody in here. Self-medication. We're so busy with the latest disease that we think we have, that we've talked ourselves into in many cases, that we would rather be involved in that. There are people, Stephen Hawking. Have you ever seen Stephen Hawking? Would you like to have that body? No, I wouldn't either. Do you think it stops him from being his fully actualized self? No, he doesn't let it get in the way. Okay? Choosing an unsupportive mate. I'd be a great artist if only he or she would support me and would get out of my way. Take a breath. And the flip side of that is choosing a mate who is really fully self-actualized and really expressing themselves, and you support them. You're the good supporter. How many preachers' wives and husbands and musicians' wives and husbands and spouses of aspiring artists and great athletes and all this stuff are sitting there, I'm just a supportive little... And what it is, it's great, it's nice, but you're not actualizing yourself. Who did I come here to be? You didn't come here to be a supporter of somebody else's dreams. You came here to express your dream. And it's okay to support somebody else too, but you came here to express your highest and greatest good. Criticism and gossip, spending time in that. See, when you're fully self-actualized, when you're out there being full on, you don't have time for criticism and gossip. You don't care who looked at who wrong. You don't care what, the latest tabloid says, whoever's cheating on whoever. I just read somebody famous got dumped in the delivery room. It's like, huh? Like, first of all, I don't believe in that. And secondly, who cares? That's their drama. Being a star. See, there are writers, right? There are writers. They have the right scarf. They have the right hat. They have the right notebook. And they hang out in the right coffee shop. You ever notice? No? Yes? Yes. Thank you. I had a friend when I was in my 20s who used to carry a guitar case around with a great guitar in it. He picked up chicks all the time with it. He never knew how to play the guitar. He just carried it around to look like a musician. He looked cool. Okay? A writer usually doesn't even look like a writer. They look like Reverend Mary. Just a wonderful person going about their lives, but she's not running around going, I'm a writer. Healing. I have to heal. I have to heal my childhood issues before I can be myself. I have to heal my broken heart before I can express myself. I have to heal whatever it is before I can be myself. I have to somehow be perfect before I can express who I really am. Anybody? The squirming. I see the squirming happening. I can see the squirming happening. Okay? And so a wonderful idea that we have to be perfect before we can go out and be ourselves. One of the things that goes hand in hand with the idea of do it afraid is that athletes or pros play hurt. Okay? The athlete doesn't wait until they're in the perfect shape because they got to go out and play the game, do the race, do whatever it is right now with what they got. And they play hurt. Okay? We can play hurt. We can be ourselves while we're still healing. We don't have to be completely healed. And then finally, we're busy looking for support. I'm looking for somebody else to support me. That's a great way to avoid ourselves. So how do we get over this? Okay, I've just depressed everybody in the room. How do we defeat resistance? It's a great quote. Defeating resistance is like giving birth. It seems absolutely impossible until you remember that women have been pulling it off successfully with support and without for 50 million years. Okay? So we talk about how big and how insidious resistance is, but we still know that there are works of art created, there are beautiful songs written, there are wonderful books written, there are ministerial talks given. You know, I have friends of mine who talk once in a while as ministers. They talk, every 6 weeks or 2 months or 3 months. They get hired to do a talk. And they work on it and they work on it. And they sit there and go, how can you do a talk every single Sunday? 2 even. I sit down and I start writing. I do the talk. Whatever comes out is whatever comes out. Some are better than others, but whatever comes out. So how do we defeat resistance? The number one way, we turn pro. We turn pro. These two are professional musicians. I know that because they're up there doing it. Now, it doesn't mean they make their entire living doing that, but they have an attitude that says, we're going to sit down and write songs on a regular basis. Reverend Mary sat at her typewriter as a pro and said, I'm going to sit down every day and write something, or on a regular schedule. I don't know if it was every day or not, because I haven't it was every day. She's shaking her head, until this thing is finished. That's a pro. An amateur dabbles when they feel like it. You turn pro. See, if resistance is the stance against us, we have to take a stronger stance against it. We have to take a stronger stance for what we want. And so we become professional at being who it is we are. We commit to our soul's call. We commit to our soul's call. We know the difference between urgent and important. And we do what's important. And what's important in our lives is our soul call. We'll always have urgent things that have to be done. Have you noticed? But the important thing, if we're busy taking care of putting out the fires, doing the urgent, we'll never get to the important. Do the important. Do what is the most important thing for you to do, which is the expression of your soul. Whether it's the spiritual practice that you do, whether it's sitting down and writing something, whether it's creating the business you want, what is important to you? What is the highest important to you? And that's what you do first. That's what you do first. Deal with the urgent stuff later. The next one is a tough one. It's a dirty word here in religious science, and that is we learn to suffer. Take a breath. Every good thing that has ever come out has been the result of people, quote, suffering. I asked Reverend Mary at the first service, did you ever feel like you were sitting at the typewriter suffering? And she said, yes. Okay? There are days where it doesn't work. There are days it doesn't feel good. There are days where we have to slog through whatever we're slogging through, and it's tough, and it's difficult, and we feel like we're suffering. Many of you know I'm a big bicycle racing fan, and we talk about in bicycle racers, the best ones are the ones who know how to suffer. I watched right now the World Championships have just been happening this whole week, and I watched the woman who won the World Championship, the Women's Time Trial Championship, and time trial is basically a race individually against the clock, and it was about an hour-long course, and she got to the finish of it and was literally, fell off her bike and laid on the ground crying from the pain, but she won. An hour after, in fact, actually about 15 minutes after she was finished crying about the pain, she was laughing and cheering and happy, and because she had fulfilled what she came there to do, and nobody could ever take that away from her. We have to be willing to suffer and go through the hard stuff, go through the dark nights of the soul to get to where we want to go. That's the bad news. The good news is we get to the other side of the dark night of the soul. The caterpillar has to be willing to suffer the total disillusion of its entire being. Sound familiar? In order to come out as a butterfly. That's not an easy thing to do, is it?
No.
Thank you. Take a breath. We have to practice patience. We have to be in it for the long haul. Again, that resistance keeps on coming, and we have to keep on keeping on against the resistance. We have to keep on keeping on in the direction that our soul wants to go. We have to be in it for the long haul. We'll have our ups and downs. We'll have our days where it just doesn't work. Okay? We'll have our days where our talks bomb, where our books just, you sit there and look at the end of a 2-hour writing session, you throw the whole thing away because it all stinks. You have the songs that you throw out because it's just like you look at that and go, what in the heck was I even thinking of when I started that? Yes? Yes. Yeah. Okay? So we practice patience, we're in it for the long haul. We take no excuses, we make no excuses. There's that old saying, what is it? There's either reasons or excuses. Sorry, results or excuses. So we go for the results, we don't make the excuses. We play it as it lies. In other words, we play it and the surrounding circumstance, we play our life as it is. We don't wait for it to get better. We don't wait for the economy to turn around. We don't wait for the right time to come. We don't wait for the planetary alignment or the numerology or whatever, or the right spouse or the right, whatever. We play it where it lies. We play it right now. If we sit and wait, we're dead. We master our technique. So we're constantly getting better at what we do. See, I'm constantly working with other ministers, listening to their talks, looking at how to be a better minister, looking at how to be a better leader. Reverend Mary, blessed us this week, or last week I think it was, with a couple of wonderful books on leadership to take a look at. I just finished up a leadership course with another minister, Jim Lockhart. We're constantly working to improve ourselves. We get good help. It kind of goes hand in hand with that. We get good coaching. Even the best, Tiger Woods, when he was at his best, worked with a coach. Best golfer in the world, worked with a coach to get better. And then finally, we don't take it personally. We don't look to our results and take them personally. We don't self-identify with our work. We recognize who we are and who our work is, and we let our work stand separately. So your homework this week. How are we doing?
Good. Good.
Our homework this week. Usually I give you a 3-part homework. This is a 2-part homework. Simple, okay? Number 1, listen to and identify what it is that your soul really wants to create. What is it that when you get to the end of your life, if you haven't done it, you're going to be really unhappy for? You're going to be really unhappy about? What is it that truly wants to come out of you? What is it that you know is yours to do, that you have to do, that's your unique gift to give to this world, to this life? That's homework number 1. Listen to that. Listen to it. And number 2, do it. Just do it. Is that simple enough? Discover it, learn it. And by the way, there's a process called confusion. Oh, I don't know what's mine to do. Yes, you do. And if you're in that process, see somebody who can help you to get to that point of listening. But all it is the truth is, you know what it is. You probably were doing it when you were 5 years old. And you let people talk you out of it. You assimilated other cultures that said, oh, you can't make a living out of that. Girls don't do that. Boys don't do that. Whatever. People in Reading don't do that. You already know what it is. Let it out, and then just do it. You willing to do that? Yeah. Cool. Let's pray. Actually, before we pray, I have a quote. And then we'll pray. And Alana's going to play some music behind me, or Firefly's going to play music behind me, sorry. It is commonplace among artists and children at play that they're not aware of time or solitude while they're chasing their vision. The hours fly. The sculptress and the tree-climbing tyke both look up blinking when Mom calls supper time. What is it that when you're doing it, time flies, and 4 hours later you're sitting here going, oh my God, it's time for supper? Or the universe calls and says, it's time for you to drop that body and move on. What is it that is yours to do? Let's pray. So know that there is only one life, one infinite life, one pure expression of joy, of bliss, of good, of great good. One love. One light that shines within each and every one of us. That infinite presence is for life. It can't be against itself. And it is the only thing operating in this universe. It is the only thing operating anywhere. And because it is infinite, because it is one, we are one of it. We can't be anywhere else. There is nothing and no one else to be but one of this infinite presence. So we ourselves are one of this life, one of this light, one of this love, one of this great good, one of this infinite joy and bliss. That is the true nature of who we are. And so I speak my word that we allow that to express in, through, and as our lives right here, right now. That there is that within each of us which knows not only that truth, but also the unique expression of how we are to express it. Of how each one of us is here to be that light in form, to be that life in form, to be that love in form. And we say yes to that. We allow that which is greater than just ourselves to move through us, to overpower the resistance, and to truly make that resistance futile as we open to the Spirit, the highest and greatest mind within us. We say yes to that. And then we get busy putting it into form and action. It moves from beyond just idea and beyond even just word into the action, into the moving of the feet in the direction that we truly want to go, that our hearts, that our souls are calling us to go. And we say yes to that. And so in gratitude for all the good that comes out of that, in gratitude for all the blessings that amass from that, because when we are living our lives in alignment, we bless ourselves and we bless the world. It may sometimes be dark and difficult, but the blessings come and they flow, and we know we're in our right place. And everyone else knows we're in our right place. And all are blessed. And for this I'm grateful. For the Spirit that moves in, through, and as it all, I am so grateful. And so I release this word, I release this spoken word, this clear idea into the mind, into the law that moves it into form, moves it into expression, moves it into experience on our human level. As we say yes to it, as we say we let it be. And together we say, and so it is.
Love Supreme. And I wrote it after reading a book by Joseph Campbell, sitting on the Oregon coast, moving through resistance. Love Supreme.
Sound the rain. the sun.